Hey Gengar Gang, what is going on? My name is Ryan, this is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to another video. In today's video, friends, we are going to be checking out these hip new ETB cases, if that's what you want to call them. But, long story short, if you have been on the internet recently, especially in some of the Reddit and Facebook groups, you'll know that it is now the cool new hip thing to go to Target, and not only are Pokemon people buying out literally Pokemon card sections at Target, now apparently we're buying out the canister section at Target. So here is what one of these doohickeys look like. This is effectively, I'm going to move these two out of the way in the back, but here is what one of these looks like. So this is the food container that is sold at Target. This doohickey is 10 bucks, and apparently, here's the UPC at the bottom. It is a canister. Let me go ahead and get that focused up for everyone. It's a canister that is dishwasher top rack safe, but not microwave safe. And apparently, it's the new hot thing for storing your ETBs if you happen to be a collector. Now, as you can see on screen right now, I have two ETBs stored up in one of these cases just to kind of show you them, and I figured in today's video we would talk a little bit more about why this is good, why this is bad, and honestly just give you a little product review so that if you were interested in picking some of these up, you could watch this video, check it out, learn a little bit more about these products, and then make a decision. So, long story short, there are tons of different ways to, store your sealed product, and obviously acrylic cases have really kind of been the higher end of the spectrum when it comes to this stuff. Basically, you want to buy acrylic because acrylic is totally safe, very hard, doesn't scratch anything on the inside, but it scratches very easily. So there's some drawbacks to acrylic as well. The other problem that acrylic has is that unless you're buying in bulk, they can be stupid expensive. So they can range anywhere from $50 to $100, and because of that, it's both a thriving business but also a very unforeseen expense when it comes to Pokemon card collecting. So having something that is $10 is actually hilariously cheap. It sounds like a bit of money, but when you think about it and compare it to some of the other options that are out there, it's actually quite cost effective. Just so everyone's aware, this is what one of these doohickeys looks like, and now that we've kind of seen two ETBs, I'm gonna go ahead and take these off screen, put them off my table, and now we're just gonna take a brief look at this thingy. Obviously, I bet what happened was someone saw one of these guys, someone saw one of these and said, oh wow, it looks like they fit. And honestly, I think that's pretty much how it happened. Now, this is a two-part container, so the first part is literally just a very, very transparent plastic, which is, I think, part of the reason why it's been so successful. And the second part is this really weird cover. The one thing I will say is that there is a rubber gasket around, so you can kind of feel it and see it right here, but this rubber gasket is probably for when you put food in here to then put and kind of seal out all of the air. So I think that's the reason why that happens. Now, one thing I will note, you can actually see right here, there is a little gap, and you can tell it's different because on this side, there is no gap. So you can see right here is how it should look, and here's how it does look. So that's probably just a slight defect of this particular one. Probably the gasket isn't sitting correctly, so there's a little weird like sponginess right here. You can see it. So that's one thing to note. But other than that, it's a relatively simple design. I really do like these. I think they're cool. And then just so you all can see how an ETB fits in here, I'm going to put one in like this. It fits pretty well, all things considered. So it's obviously not straight to the top, which is good, which is actually perfect, because then we go ahead and put this thingamabobber on top. And there you go. So, assuming it holds down all the way, there is a little bit of wiggle room on that side. And as you can see, there is a little bit of wiggle room on the sides of the ETB. But in the grand scheme of things, a really nice way to store these things. The other thing that I really like is that these were made to be stackable. So the top section over here actually fits another whole container. So I could take another one of these guys and stack it on top. And I'm just going to tip the camera back slightly, but as you can see, it actually stacks really well, which means these could make for some really excellent displays. The other weird bit of, feedback / comment that I would have to say is that you can actually reverse the orientation of the ETB. So if you wanted to, you could put the ETB down on the base, kind of like this, and then you could slide the plastic over and do it this way, and then it could display like that as well. Now, I'm personally a fan of doing it like this. I don't know, but again, you can stack another one on top, so it works either way. It could be stacked, but in the grand scheme of things, I thought these were pretty cool. Now, one thing to note is that you do have this sticker right here. This is, again, what you would find in the store. These actually peel off relatively easily, so I'm just going to attempt to do that on camera right now. And as you can see, as long as you're delicate, you shouldn't even have to use like any kind of like special cleaner or anything. It peels off really well, really cleanly, and there you have it, your ETB stored up safe and sound. Now, just for the sake of doing it, I guess I'm going to go ahead and show another one of those on screen. I ended up buying 4 of these, and again, this was kind of with the intent of doing a product review and also just with the intent of seeing how these things actually work. As you can see, this Champion's Path ETB sinks in really nicely, and then we go ahead and apply the cap, and there you go, a really nice, cheap and easy display. Now, the one thing I will say is that obviously there is a little bit of wiggle room in these, so it's definitely something to think about when you're purchasing. But as long as these aren't going to be used as a form of protective storage, I think you should be in a good enough situation where you're not going to need to worry about these too much. These are great for display. They will keep your box clean, they will keep your box safe, and they will make sure that no further damage happens to these boxes over time. And with that said, I mean, that really completes my product review of this particular item. Like I said, this is cheap, affordable, and readily available storage. You don't have the manufacturing time that you typically associate with acrylic custom boxes. And the other major thing to consider is that these are available at every Target. And, well, hopefully me saying this doesn't jinx it, but they should be readily available. You know, this isn't something that I can see Target keeping a low stock of. They probably get hundreds, if not thousands of these per district or per region. So I really do think this is a great and easy way to store your ETBs. The one thing I would urge you to consider is that they're also good for food storage, because that rubber gasket means they are airtight. And the only other thing to consider is these might scratch relatively easily. So you might want to consider, you know, just making sure not to rub these two together or putting it next to an item that could scratch the surface of this. Again, better the plastic gets scratched than the ETB, but in the grand scheme of things, definitely an additional consideration for you to consider. And then my last, kind of comment / feedback is that this is really cool because it shows the ingenuity of the hobby. I think, tons of folks go to places like Michael's, the Container Store, and they'll go ahead and they'll find a variety of different things that weren't intended for trading cards, but in the grand scheme of things end up being very useful and handy for trading cards. So for example, someone was probably doing groceries when they stumbled on this thing and found out that it could be used for holding an ETB. And the same could be said for quite literally many other different things. I, for one, have a crafting kit station that I use to hold all of my different sleeves and card protectors. So actually, it's not far from here. I can go ahead and grab that and show it off right now. So here is my art bin. This is a mini sidekick. It's actually pretty cool. I got it at Michael's, but what's cool is that it's like a really tough, rugged thingamabobber. And when you open it up, this is my PSA case. So basically, I have my semi-rigid card holders. I have some cards that'll be going out for my next submission. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of those there. So because of the size and shape of this, it was actually perfect for holding basically everything related to PSA grading. So I have one of these. I have a whole bunch of other different things. Like I said, you can get creative, and I think this particular example is really strong because it shows that within the hobby, we're willing to definitely, experiment and come up with some really cool ways of retrofitting regular day items into the hobby. So I definitely encourage you to do two things. One, keep an eye out. You never know what you might see, you never know what you might find, and you never know how it could be useful. The second thing to do is bear in mind that if you can share it and help others in the hobby, that's also really great. One thing I will say, just to kind of wrap up this video, is that obviously these aren't intended for Pokemon cards or for ETBs. The same is true of anything that I've just suggested you do. So if you go out there, you find something that is helpful, albeit not made for Pokemon card collectors, bear in mind that there might be some drawbacks. If you can look, you'll see that this side has actually sunk down and this side is actually sitting slightly up. So the entire ETB is actually slightly skewed this way, and you can actually see it because right up here you have this much headspace versus over here where it's basically sitting at the very top of the plastic. So is it a good enough option, and is the cost low enough to ignore the drawbacks? For most people, yes. However, some people will still find a reason to complain. But with that said, friends, thanks again for checking out today's video. I do hope you found this informational, and if you do end up buying a few of these, definitely feel free to let me know down below in the comments. Like I said, they're cheap, they're available, they don't have a massive lead time or crazy shipping expense associated with them. They're good for most collectors. Very few people are going to want a perfect fitting acrylic case for an ETB that costs them $40 on a store shelf, and so for the fair majority of us, this is a great thing to buy. Other than that, I hope you found today's video helpful. Definitely, if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to the channel. It's a great way to support everything we do here, as well as help the channel grow. Other than that, hope you guys are having an amazing day, and we'll talk soon. Peace.